a question I've been asking myself, and I feel like I've been intuitively answering it, but I would love an expert's opinion, which is, what is the difference between exercise and movement? I feel like for me, that's now changed. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, they are different, but they relate to each other. So I would ask everyone to envision a diagram that was a giant circle, and that circle was called movement. And anything that's a change in your body's position, in the change of your tissue's orientation, is going to go into that big giant circle. That's what movement is. There's something happening to you on the tissue and the cellular level. Exercise is a smaller circle that sits inside the movement circle. So exercise is a very particular type of movement.
Okay.
So all exercise is movement, but not all movement is exercise.
Ooh.
So that's just a mathematical relationship there.
Okay, so my next question would be, as we age, what do we need more? Exercise? Do we need to just think about movement? Or maybe the better way to ask it is, what else is inside the circle of movement?
Let's keep defining what exercise is. So exercise is a
perfect.
smaller circle. Like what qualifies something you're doing with your body as exercise versus
perfect.
non-exercise?
Great.
So exercise is movement that is done for the sole purpose of improving your physical fitness, your health, your well-being. Okay. So it has that intention behind it. And because of that, you have to step away from all other parts of your life to be able to get it done, because it's the exclusive thing that's happening.
Interesting.
You've usually predetermined the mode, what you're going to do. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to take a Zumba class. I'm going to go for a swim. I'm going to go for a run. You determine for how long you're going to do it. I'm doing it for 30 minutes. I'm doing it for 45 minutes, or how far you're going to do it. So it's got this real predetermined, pre-selected set of variables to it. But the intention is really a main piece of it. And then, so let's talk about what sits outside of the exercise box for a second. Let's say you're going to ride your bike to work. So that's transportation. You're not doing that solely for your physical fitness. You need to get to work, and you've decided this more physical way of doing it, but that's physical activity. So in fact, physical activity is another circle. And in research for health and wellness, physical activity is what everyone's trying to increase. Some people can get it through exercise, right? Some people need to supplement their sedentary life with exercise, like they would need to supplement their diet with minerals and vitamins, protein powder, collagen powder.
Love that.
Right? Within their own movement diet does not include the movement nutrients that they need. And so they supplement with exercise, right? They're like, oh, I need to work this particular part of my arm. I'm going to do these exercises, but it's called non-purposeful. So there's purposeful and non-purposeful movement. Okay. Again, with the exercise, you're lifting weights just for the sole purpose of making that muscle bigger, to add muscle mass to your body, to improve the strength of your skeleton. But you aren't necessarily stacking wood, right? That would be a practical task. So for many lives, we've gotten rid of all of the practical movement. And so we're having to heavily supplement because we don't have this movement in our life anymore. Now, the physical benefit's the same, whether you're doing it for exercise or doing it for practicality. But your ability to get enough of it really diminishes when you are only pursuing exercise.
Oh my God, so interesting. Okay, so let's use my 24-year-old daughter as an example. She is a farrier. Do you know what a farrier is?
I do. I'm from the country.
She changes horseshoes for a living, and I have never seen her more fit.
Yeah.
And it is part of her job. And it has been interesting. I would look, even though it was part of her job, that she had built a very functional movement, lifting lifestyle. Like, it really is part of her lifestyle. So she doesn't really need exercise because her day-to-day is everything from the cardiovascular to the lifting to the thing. So everything she needs on a physicality level is already being pacified through her job. But that's unique. So what I'm hearing you say is actually the opposite is happening, where so many of us aren't creating enough movement in our life. So then exercise becomes more intentional because it's like a supplement for what we're not getting in our day-to-day lives. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we need the movement. There's no one arguing about the need for movement.
Yeah,
Like, that's the
true.
one sort of place in the wellness sphere where you can't get a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
We need movement. We also need different types of movement. So that's why, you're an athlete, so you are probably familiar with the idea of cross training.
Yes.
So you can't really only do one type of movement in the same way you can't really only eat one food or two foods.
Okay.
The nourishment for those two foods, as good as those foods are not enough to give you the spectrum of nutrients that you need, dietarily speaking. Similarly, you need different types of movement to fully nourish you across the spectrum of movement macros and movement micros.
Okay.
So with athletes, you would maybe, one way to think about it is the shapes that you use with your body. What was your sport?
Tennis.
Okay, so you're a tennis player. So tennis, you've got a lot of power hitting, so you're really using your arms vigorously in a certain way, dynamic arms. You've got a lot of agility, side to side, front to back. But you wouldn't necessarily be meeting your needs for picking up heavy things or for taking a longer walk or for getting down on your hands and knees and being on your knees or your hands.
Yes.
And then there would be micronutrients where maybe by only, let's say, physically eating so much backhand, your wrists and elbows would be saying, you're consuming too much of this food. You're getting too much of this vitamin and movement. And so we need you to do some physical therapy to learn how to hit with the better part of your shoulder. You need to be bringing in your waist a little bit. Or maybe you can't make tennis the only food you're eating. We're going to give you another sport to play in your off season or some active recovery. So what I just did there was I looked at your movement diet overall, and to say a lot of that movement that you're getting doesn't even need to necessarily touch your tennis time. It needs to happen in the rest of your life around your the other time.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, is balancing our movement diet over the macros and over the micros. And one key piece is to keep in mind that anything you do in your life is going to sort into these domains: sleep, leisure, occupation, transportation, and home.
Okay.
Everything we do is going to fit into one of those domains. It doesn't necessarily have to be a place, but it's like a container for the activity that you're doing.
Okay.
So your daughter is getting her movement diet in occupation, has a lot of these movement macros or movement micros, but she's in her 20s. And I would imagine that there's a lot of bending over in farrier work, a lot of spinal flexion, lumbar flexion.
Yeah.
If she only relied on her occupation, over time, that part of her body is going to become fatigued, and there's going to need to be other parts that need to be, or at least part of her diet, her movement diet would be in the leisure category or in the home category when she's done working and she wants to relax physically because her physical activity is high, her cardiovascular activity has been high, her muscles are sore. She's going to watch Netflix and do some stretches for her lower back.
Right.
So she's going to end up supplementing her movement diet while watching TV, or maybe she's going to go to a physical therapist at some point who's going to help her show a better way of bending over that lets her use this joint. Exactly.
So she's at a chiropractor learning that right now.
Or a chiropractor, right?
Yeah.
So that's alignment. You're familiar with alignment. This idea of sometimes our physical activity is high, but our alignment isn't such that distributes the movement well over the body. And so there's these tweaks to your movement diet that make your overall movement more nourishing for your body.
Okay, I love this idea of a movement diet.